Hello students, I hope you all are doing well. Today we'll start with the third lesson in history, the American Civil War. In the previous lesson, the growth of nationalism, the age of revolutions, where we studied about two revolutions, the American and the French Revolution. In this lesson, the American Civil War, we'll study what happened after the American Revolution. The American Revolution was organized to establish a sovereign democratic state, that is, United States of America. As we know that the European countries had established their colonies in America, England had a group of 13 colonies on the east coast of America. So these 13 colonies, on 4th of July, 1776, declared their rights to independence, which led to war between the colonies and the British government. The war was won by the colonies, and with signing of Treaty of Paris, a new country named as the United States of America was formed. Now we'll see what does American Civil War means. Now as this war happened in America, so it is known as the American Civil War, and here the word civil war means a war between two groups of people in the same country. Now, United States comprised the northern states and the southern states. So, the American Civil War was fought between the northern states, known as Union, and the southern states, known as Confederacy. The American Civil War is also known as War Between States, which began in 1861 and lasted till 1865. It was one of the important events in American history. This war threatened the unity and integrity of the nation. Now we come to the causes of the Civil War. So let's review the main causes of the Civil War. First, sectionalism. Second, slavery. Third, states' rights. Fourth, tariffs. And fifth, election of 1860 and secession. Now we come to the first cause, that is sectionalism. Now the word sectionalism means dividing something in sections. Now prior to the Civil War, the United States was not really united. The country was more like two separate countries sharing the same land. Sectionalism is a tendency to be more interested in your particular region than the problems and interests of the entire country. Now, as the northern side was an industrial economy and southern side was a plantation economy. So both the regions were working according to their own interests. Now, slavery was a very important cause of the Civil War. As we know that the country was divided into North and South, hence there was difference in opinion regarding slavery. According to the southern section, they viewed slavery as a necessity to maintain economic wealth. But in the northern section, they viewed slavery as unconstitutional. From the very beginning, slavery in United States was a legal institution. It was practiced from early colonial days and was legal in all the 13 colonies. Under slavery, an enslaved person was treated as property and could be bought, sold, or given away. Now, slavery was the major cause of the American Civil War. Slavery in the North. The northern economy was based on industry and factories. There were fewer farms, thus fewer slaves needed. States passed laws abolishing slave trade. The North had manufacturing businesses, factories and banking, thus they rely on industry and commerce. The South had farming, plantations, cash crops and slave labor, and hence they rely on plantations and agriculture. Now, the South had slavery for their farms, but in the North they had the abolitionists. Now, abolitionists were people who worked to stop the practice of slavery. They created an underground railroad to help slaves escape to different places. The railroad had a string of hideouts for the fleeing slaves. In the 1800s, the northern states turned from farming to manufacturing and became prosperous. They shunned slavery and considered it a blot on the name of their country. But in the southern states, farming was the main occupation, where farmers grew cotton, tobacco, sugarcane, and they used slaves to work in their fields, and without them, agriculture would suffer. The southern states were generally backward. Without slave labor, agriculture would suffer in the south. The anti-slavery movement or abolitionism or abolition of 1840 was a great threat to South. Now, according to abolition, slavery should come to an end immediately and it should lead to emancipation. That is the immediate freedom from the control of another person. The issue became so controversial that a civil war became inevitable. In 1852, public feeling against slavery was intensified by Harriet Beecher Stowe's novel Uncle Tom's Cabin, which showed the ugly side of slavery. Now, Uncle Tom's Cabin was an anti-slavery novel. It had an effect on attitudes towards African Americans and slavery in the US. The novel intensified the seasonal conflict leading to the American Civil War. The Fugitive Slave Act or the Fugitive Slave Law of 1850 made the conditions of slaves highly insecure. Now, this law was passed by the United States Congress. It required that all escaped slaves upon capture be returned to their masters, even if they had reached northern states where slavery wasn't allowed. The act required all the citizens to help catch runaways. Anyone who aided a runaway could be fined or imprisoned. People in the South believed the law would force northerners to recognize the rights of southerners. But instead, the enforcement of the law led to mounting anger in the North. This law also helped to convince more people of the evils of slavery. The Fugitive Slave Law infuriated opponents of slavery, showed slavery was a national problem, not a regional problem. Now, all these factors under slavery led to the Civil War. Next cause is the states' rights. Now, states' right is the idea that each state has a right to determine whether or not to follow the federal laws. The Southerners supported the states' right. They believed they had the right to own slaves and even secede or leave the Union if they desired. The Southern states wanted no interference by the federal government in the state affairs. They reserved the right to reject any federal law which they did not like. Now, these rights were held by individual US states rather than by the federal government. The South turned this argument to protect slavery. The next we come to tariffs. A tariff is a tax on imported and exported goods. The Northerners felt that the federal government had the power to make laws that applied to all states, including imposing taxes. The Northerners favored tariffs and the Southerners hated tariffs. Election of 1860. The Republican Party was founded by the Northerners who hated slavery. In November 1860, the nominee of the Republican Party, Abraham Lincoln, who opposed slavery, was elected President of USA. Since Lincoln had spoken against slavery, the southern states looked upon him as an enemy. As he won the election and pushed the deep South towards secession, the South felt the government was becoming too strong. As we know that USA has been divided into North and South, North known as the Union and South as the Confederate States, there was an armed conflict over the issue of slavery between them, and hence the Southern states seceded from the Union and formed the Confederate States of America. Now, Confederate States means the 11 Southern states of the USA which broke away from the Union in 1860 to 61 and started the American Civil War. The 11 Confederate States were from the Lower South region of United States, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas, and from the Upper South region of United States, Virginia, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Arkansas. They established a new nation, the Confederate States of America. They chose their own president, Jefferson Davis, in February 1861. As states left the Union, they seized all federal properties within their border. Now, seizing all federal properties means forcefully taking the buildings, land, or other real property owned, leased, or occupied by any department or agency of the United States. When the Confederates fired in Fort Sumter, now Fort Sumter was a fort in South Carolina, President Lincoln declared blockade of southern ports. Now this blockade was nicknamed as Scott's Great Snake. With this, the Civil War began in 1861 and lasted till 1865. With this, we come to an end of the first part of Lesson 3. The remaining portion we'll study in the next video. So till then, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a good day. Thank you.